Hello there, I'm Kaz. On the very first worldwide release of the next main entries in the Pokemon series, Pokemon X and Pokemon Y, I would like to remind you all that Game Freak has in fact made games besides the Pokemon series.
Unbelievable as it may seem to you younger folks whose only exposure to Game Freak's wide palette of titles involves capturing animals and tiny balls, Game Freak has made quite a few original games before and during the development of Pokemon Red and Pokemon Blue. Starting off with Mental Palace on the NES in 1989, these titles were made on various consoles ranging from the Famicom to the TurboGrafx-16, often being overly ambitious but failing to realize the content behind each game. When Pokemon became the worldwide phenomenon that we know it to be today, Game Freak's fresh new titles have become few and far between. Which brings us to today's title. Version 83 2005 under the name of Screwbreaker, Drill Dozer was released in Japan on September 25th, 2005 and in North America on February 6th, 2006. When it was initially launched, the game included a mini-comic detailing events that happened prior to Drill Dozer's main storyline, but the story isn't why you're going to be playing this game in the first place, and trust me, it is not going to be one of the things you'll enjoy about it. One odd thing to note about the game is the shape of the cartridge itself. It's unusual enough to see one that's not the standard gray or translucent plastic that you'd see cover up the Pokemon games, let alone with such a deformed looking cartridge. Why is it shaped like that? Well, let's take a look inside, shall we? Now let's compare this to a copy of Pokemon Ruby that I just happen to have lying around and opened up. As you can see, Drill Dozer's cartridge is slightly larger than that of Pokemon Ruby's and includes a rumble feature. Very few Game Boy Advance games utilize this. In fact, the only other Game Boy Advance game to use this feature was WarioWare Twisted, making this one of the most unique game cartridges in the Game Boy Advance's library. But is there more to this title than a strange plastic shell? Let's drill beneath the mantle and explore Drill Dozer to find out. You play as Joe, member of the— oh look! Multiple save files! That's a rarity for Game Freak.
I do hope they remove that in the sequel and try to do something that I could do before. That would be just perfect. Oh wait, no it wouldn't!
Anyway, you play as Joe, member of the Red Dozers, a group of thieves who set out to recover their stolen Chaos Emerald, Red Diamond, from a rival gang known as the Skulkers. To do that, she dons a mech known as the Drill Dozer to jump, dodge, and drill through the game's non-linear levels within its 6 stages. You start off each level with only one gear intact, which won't get you very far, but by solving simple puzzles and breaking whatever obstacles that you can that lie in your path with your trusted drill, you can find 2 more gears that allow the Drill Dozer to reach a 2nd or 3rd gear respectively, and explore even more areas in a stage, culminating in a boss fight that you beat by finding the weak spot and shifting up to the 3rd gear to inflict maximum damage. And of course, they wouldn't be a group of thieves without some loot, so you'll find multiple treasure chests to raid and collect bits dropped by destroyed objects and enemies which you can use to purchase upgrades, like more health or a harder drill bit, as well as more levels after defeating the boss and getting picked up by your cruise trailer. One thing that must be said is that Drill Dozer boasts an excellent control scheme. For the most part, with each shoulder button controlling the Drill Dozer's drill, the drill's gear, and each direction the drill spins. It crams a lot of actions with as few buttons as it has, but it all feels very natural and smooth. The rumble pack works great too here, gimmick as it may seem, for making you feel like you're drilling into hard objects, and it's very satisfying to feel that vibration in your hand once you've gone through a strong and long line of tough blocks. Satisfying is the word of the day, and it applies itself well to the element of Drill Dozer's design. It's obvious that a lot of thought went behind every object and platform's placement that just clicks together as a whole, though that's not as great as achievement. There's a lot of depth mined out of Drill Dozer's major hook, from timing to type of gear, that leads to some particularly brilliant moments, but again, that's not the best part. The true brilliance of Drill Dozer comes not from the level design itself, but how fully realized each level is and how well it utilizes the defining mechanic of which each level is built around. Game Freak really understood what they could do with the Drill Dozer, its limitations and potential, always managing to find a new way to keep you exploring the mechanic yourself and how best to manipulate it to beat the level as fast as you can, or introduce a new block, enemy, or object at the right time to keep Drill Dozer fresh from beginning to end. It's simply amazing how much variety they got out of this one mechanic. It shows how much fertile soil there is to break, no pun intended, with this solid mechanic in a sequel, best exemplified in the boss battles. With the exception of the very final two, each of them plays out like a fast-paced, on-your-toes puzzle in of themselves, each encounter finding a unique way to make sure you use the Drill Dozer as a tool rather than a weapon, while keeping the basic goal of defeating them in sight. It's moments like these which make Drill Dozer a near flawless and refreshing experience. Most of the problems that it has are common with platformers, like the ill-conceived water levels, but there are a few of its own. For example, why just have a bad water level when you can take to the skies and have a terrible air level? It's true that levels like these are often included to add variety to the game, but they did that fine by building on top of the foundation that the previous level had without sacrificing quality. And, if you prefer an actual level as an example, the one where you start off operating the Drill Dozer without a pilot, which somehow jumps lower than when it had the 50-pound girl in it. Video game logic at its finest, folks. While we're on the subject of logic, for the life of me, I will never get used to B for opening doors when the up button can do the same thing. I know that I said that the control scheme is really well done, and it is. Picking up pictures with the B button works fine, but why not let us press up to go through doors like in, every other platformer that has doors? Why B? It's not like the B button doesn't do enough as it does already. Also, here's a minor nitpick. Why ask us if we want to save after every level? Do I want to save? Well, my battery is low, but how much more fun would this be if the power turned off only for me to have to start over from the beginning instead of where I left off? Oh wait, that's stupid. I'll save every bloody time. Drill Dozer is also pretty easy and surprisingly light on content. Not counting the bonus stages, which, as I mentioned before, you have to pay for, or the training course, there's only 11 levels in the campaign. And while they are solid, not a bad one in all of them outside of the aforementioned air and water ones, it doesn't change the fact that, due to the surprising lack of replay from Game Freak, the time you'll spend with Drill Dozer will be short-lived. Why is that? Why does the overall package feel like such a brief, albeit rewarding experience? Well, it might just be a theory, but it could be because every level has some unwanted padding in between the fun parts. There are sections where the game just stops and throws waves of enemies at you for a short period of time. And no, you don't have to attack them to progress. They literally walk on screen, attack, and then run off after some time passes. Why yes, that does make these parts a complete waste of time. Drill Dozer is at its best when you're testing your reflexes to solve puzzles as fast as you can. When parts like this pop up, the flow tends to suffer and slow things to a standstill. They have no purpose aside from artificially inflating the short game's length, damaging the pacing of each level. Speaking of pacing, let's talk about these cutscenes. Oh me, oh these cutscenes. My oh my, are they bad? And not just the dialogue, the constant tutorials are a pain too. Drill Dozer constantly disrupts the gameplay at every opportunity to tell you how to defeat this boss or how to get past this door. Basically, something you could have figured out if you just used your brain. What's that? Hold down R to keep drilling. Thank you, I never would have been able to figure that out on my own. Be sure to tell me how to use a Pokeball for the millionth dang time. Ugh.
I hate this!
While these are awful, poorly implemented tutorials that treat the player like a moron, they're not the end of the problem that these cutscenes create, they're the beginning of it. They're constantly interrupting the flow of gameplay for exposition and explaining what's going on instead of showing you what's going on. You thought DuckTales Remastered was littered with too many cutscenes?
Well, it is.
But Drill Dozer is a far bigger offender than Remastered is. At least there, you can skip the cutscenes at any time and keep going on with only a minor interruption. At least there's something redeemable in hearing the original cast of DuckTales come back for what are, essentially, new DuckTales episodes. Drill Dozer has nothing to benefit you from experiencing any of these. They're shorter, but not being able to skip them on your first time through takes even more away from the overall experience when you just want the characters to shut their giant gobs and let you continue on with the levels. And they happen so often, and the writing is just so terrible, even for Game Freak standards. Even when they don't have anything important to say. The game still feels like wasting your time, reminding you of what happened just seconds ago.
This is not good storytelling. You're supposed to weave exposition into the narrative, not hand the audience a fucking glossary as they walk into the theater.
It is this astoundingly awful pacing and bad writing that will crawl under your skin the more you play it. But again, these levels are pure brilliance. For as good an attempt as the narrative does to make you want to put the game down, and rest assured, whoever the writer was made a very, very good attempt, the level design keeps you picking it up and going to see what new way the drill can be used. If you can look past the faults of the narrative, then you'll find some of the most well-made and engaging levels of any handheld platformer. Finally, the presentation, where there isn't as much to nitpick, at least as far as looks go, because, well, just look at it. The art style is adorable, and these big colorful sprites are filled with charm in every frame, with neat little touches added to each one. Just look at the way Jill's backpack moves as she carries it onto the drill dozer, the way her hair curls up when she jumps, or the gears moving as you shift one up. It's subtle attention to detail like that that makes Drill Dozer such a marvel for your eyes. It looks magnificent, easily a contender for the best sprite work on the Game Boy Advance. If only it sounded as good. If you're expecting the catchy beats that Game Freak pumped out for Pulseman or Pokemon, be prepared to be disappointed. Big time. Yes, getting that third gear gives you a grand feeling of accomplishment and satisfaction when you hear the triumphant tune accompanying it, but it quickly loses its luster after the first time. The rest of the score is pretty bad, even for a Game Boy Advance game. Sure, Ruby and Sapphire focused way too much on trumpets, but this is just sad. Even knowing how terrible the sound chip was for the Game Boy Advance, it's a surprisingly bland and unmemorable soundtrack from a team who, not 3 years ago, provided some infectiously catchy tunes with said scrappy sound chip. It doesn't even sound like Game Freak composed this. It sounds like a fan of Game Freak making a hacked attempt at a score for a Game Freak game. A bad one. The sound design is partially salvaged by some especially satisfying original sound effects, but recycled sound effects from Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire come off as just a touch more than lazy. Frankly, I'm surprised there wasn't a trumpet enemy. That's how much they reused from Ruby and Sapphire, but I digress. Drill Dozer is definitely a gem in most fields, but its music is the one thing you won't be keeping on very long.
Replaying Drill Dozer made me realize why Game Freak was at one point in time my favorite game company. There's an abundance of creativity to the concept alone, which is surpassed with the excellent controls and smart level design. It's heartbreaking that this game was not more successful because it proudly stands among the best that the Game Boy Advance has to offer.
For as creative as Drill Dozer was, and as well received as it was by critics, even setting up events that would lead into a sequel, said creativity and reception didn't translate to sales, and Drill Dozer flopped hard, selling roughly 50,000 copies. For a company that houses the second best-selling series of all time, that's pretty pathetic. Copies are a bit scarce and will usually go for upwards of $20, but Drill Dozer is definitely worth that price and more. It really is a gem, one that was released just too late into the Game Boy Advance's life cycle.
So here's hoping that we finally get a sequel to Drill Dozer, and not a horse solitaire game that no one asked for. Until next time, game on, my friends.